Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're taking a look ahead at all 7 races of the Cyclocross World Championships, and with me here to discuss everything is Issam. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
The World Championships take place in Lievin. It's been over 2 decades since France hosted the Battle for the Rainbow jersey. The last time the World Championships took place in Pontchâteau. Issam, do you remember who won the Men Elite title there?
Bart Wellens. Jeez, I was. You really got me there off guard with the question. It was Bart Wellens beating Mario de Klerk in the sprint.
Of course, de Klerk. Some controversy after the race because the dad of Bart Wellens had a reality show that season called Wellens en Wee, was caught on the camera insulting de Klerk when he was sitting in the wheel of Wellens all of the race, but luckily they cleared the air, and then the dad of Wellens had to walk from his home, I think some 80 kilometers or something, because he lost a bet. That was quite funny, and hopefully we'll get some more fun this weekend in Lievin. The weather forecast has shifted a little bit, where it looked to be a ton of rain in the week leading up to the race and also the weekend. It's eased off a little bit, minor rain today, quite a lot of rain tomorrow, but then it will dry out. No rain predicted for Friday, Saturday and Sunday. In fact, sun, some decent winds, so the course might dry out. Let's start with the Men Elite race, Issam. Of course, how else can we start than Mathieu van der Poel versus Wout van Aert? Question mark? Do you think there will be a battle?
That a lot are hoping for a battle. I feel that it is definitely within the possibilities that for the first part of the race we will see a battle. I think that in Maasmechelen it was nice to see that Van Aert was able to move up quite quickly through the field, almost as if he was preparing. But we have to keep in mind, obviously, that in Maasmechelen Van der Poel took it a little bit easier in the start. He was not that eager. It could be that he's going to be a little bit more eager now, or could be waiting. I mean, with Van der Poel, you never really know. We had this similar thing in Hogerheide, in which we said that the barriers were definitely going to be something Van der Poel could use, and he didn't. You never know how this will play out, and Van der Poel is always having some tricks up his sleeve where he will try to utilize that. But Van Aert is going to be a very worthy competitor, and in all honesty, I have to say that Van Aert is also the only one I would feel in this field that actually could realistically be someone that could challenge Van der Poel, despite the fact that I think that Van der Poel at the moment is the very best and it's going to be very hard to beat. But a battle we will see, and Van Aert will throw everything at him if he is able to do so. And we will see. I think it will be a great race.
To me, we can divide the individual races into 2 categories. We have the open races and we have the races with a clear favorite. The Men Elite, Women U23 and Men U23 are the ones with a clear favorite. In the men's race, that favorite is Van der Poel. He's a machine. He looked like an absolute one in Hogerheide. He's not lost a single race this season. If you do expect a battle or just want to see Van der Poel try and claim a world title, you should probably hurry in buying your tickets, because since Van Aert announced his participation, 2,500 extra tickets have been sold, and he will face Mathieu van der Poel. He comes in here looking for a record-tying 7th world title, would equal the great Eric de Vlaming with 7 Men Elite titles. He's looking to solidify himself among the GOATs of cyclocross, to the extent that he hadn't already done that, of course. But it's a world championship, right? So in all these categories I mentioned, and we'll discuss the other ones in depth, there are things that can go wrong for Van der Poel. He can have a bad day. He can crash on his broken rib in the pre-ride. He can have a mechanical. Or what's also a possibility is that the course doesn't suit him that much. And then, I mean, not necessarily not that much. I mean, he finds a course that doesn't suit him at all. The course here in Lievin is relatively easy. There are 4 climbs, of which 2 are stairs. One is paved, one is on the grass. It's not really technical. It's a bit of a mix between Besançon and Dublin. That might make it hard for Van der Poel to ride away, if it's fast. I do think that he would be able to do it in the end. He rides much faster everywhere. We've seen that even in Lunahout he managed to get away quite easily. He should be able to do it. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the possibility that the rain comes in greater intensity than predicted, and the course is turned into an absolute slugfest. It becomes a mud battle, lots of running, it becomes a Dendermonde light. In those conditions, Van Aert probably stands a better chance than if it's a bit muddy. The big vulnerability for Van Aert are his technical skills. We've seen that this season. But that leaves me torn with the question, Issam. Should Van Aert prefer the super fast conditions, which the Belgian coach was hoping for, saying the Belgian block might be able to pull some tactics against Van der Poel? Or is his best bet that this course is Dendermonde-esque? Or do you think that I'm completely wrong and regardless of it, it doesn't matter?
Well, I have to say I'm questioning that too also a little bit. I think that it would normally be a little bit easier for Van Aert to follow Van der Poel if it's going to be a little bit more dry. Although we have seen that in Dendermonde, if it's really going to be that muddy, that Van Aert is definitely a force to be reckoned with. But I have to say that looking at the predictions, the weather forecast, I would say that it is probably not going to be a Dendermonde. That's almost impossible. And if that is the case, I think then you're probably going to look for Van Aert and say that he will probably would have more benefit with a less tricky course, a faster course. But then you have Van der Poel and the tricks, and you have Van der Poel with what we have seen so far this season. He is able to get it going on all type of courses. So it's a difficult one, I have to say, for Van Aert to really point out what is going to be the best for him. Because if it's going to be a bit more muddy and it's going to be a bit tougher, I think then in the first lap you can definitely maybe lose a little bit more time because you have maybe more riders that are in your way. But it's also then an easier to create differences between you and the rest of your competitors. So it is tricky, but something tells me that Van Aert would probably benefit a little bit more in a faster race. At least a race in which it's not really tricky. The course is not that difficult. But I think that for Van Aert, if it's going to be just about slippery and, enough of the circumstances to make it for Van Aert difficult, and he could be prone to mistakes, that is obviously something that he definitely does not want and does not need. And I think he has shown so far this season that is definitely something that is somewhat of his weakness. I think it will be quite interesting, and in the end of it, we will see it on Sunday what the forecast will be, what the weather will be, and eventually what the scenario and how it will be play out.
The non-technical nature of the course will certainly favor Van Aert more than, let's say, the course in Dendermonde, or not Dendermonde, Maasmechelen, where we were this weekend. This course is easier, it's harder to make mistakes in that regard. So I agree with the conditions aspect of your point. If it's fast, the course is probably going to be relatively easy and it might be hard for Van der Poel to break away. Again, I do think that Van der Poel's the favorite. I do think he's going to win here. I'm just trying to sketch a scenario in which Van Aert has some possibility. But now I'm done with that because I think Van der Poel's going to win. And here's how I think the first part of the race will pan out. Van der Poel starts on the front row, Van Aert starts on the fourth row. I've been reading everywhere that he's starting on the third row, but I don't know where they're getting that from. He's 41st in the UCI rankings, and there's like 10-ish, 12 riders ahead of him in the UCI rankings that aren't in the top 16, which means he's going to start on the fourth row unless they give him for some reason the spot of Jens Adams and he moves from 16th or 17th to 16th in the World Cup rankings. Van der Poel on the first row is going to attack right from the gun. He is going to do the same as what he did in Tabor, the same what he did in Dubendorf. This is how he likes to do it. If he has the possibility, he opens the race early. This is also what he did in Hoogerheide. He did Van der Haar, requested him to do a blistering lead out, attack up the big climb, get in the head of Van Aert, give a couple of big punches early on in the race, make him feel, make him suffer. I'm here, it's my game. That's what he's going to do here. And if it's muddy, I think it's likely we don't see him ever again apart from at the finish. If it's fast, maybe some riders can stick in, maybe the team tactics can play a bit more of a role. But again, I severely doubt it. He's going to seize that opportunity. Perhaps Van Aert can come back from it. It was quite impressive how he managed to get to the front in Maasmechelen. But then again, if we listen to everything, look at the evidence, look at the results, look at the cross capabilities of Van Aert, look at what his team is saying, he's doing this for fun. And what I really noted from an interview with his coach was that his coach said, well, for me the decisive factor to let him race was that last year he struggled with the fact that he had given up so many big races like the Cyclocross World Championships, like Milan-San Remo, to be good in Flanders and Roubaix, but after a crash he missed those events. That's what Van Aert lives for. He wants to perform at the biggest stage. And maybe I'm naive, but I'm inclined to believe that they are coming into this fully expecting at most a second place. And I also think that that is the most realistic scenario. 1 Van der Poel, 2 Van Aert.
Yeah, I'm not going to give a crack on how the race will play out. I have a feeling though that we will be going towards a battle there, and it will be a great watch, I think, for at least the first 30 minutes, and I think after that things could go the way of Van der Poel. Although if it's going to be a little bit faster, I have the belief that Van Aert could be there till the end, and it could be a very weird race. I mean, it's a World Championships in the end. I have seen weirder things happen in the World Championships, and I think that's, it all has to come down to that, just the details, and it's just that one day it has to be perfect. The week has to be perfect. There has to be, nothing has to go wrong. It's in the details in the end. It could go into the details. We have seen it in Hogerheide. I think that the Van Aert, if he is in good condition, and it seems that he is that way, I think that Van Aert should normally be able to, if the circumstances are there, stick around and be able to hang on the wheel of Van der Poel, or even put him under pressure at times. It's difficult. It's really difficult. For me, it was quite easy for me to say that Van der Poel was going to win, but now with Van Aert and the whole shot, it's a bit more tricky. Of course, Van der Poel is my favorite, and I would predict him to win. And then, then for Van Aert, he's obviously going to be the runner-up. Something tells me that we could be in for a surprise. I don't know.
Well, I know what that thing is. It's Van Aert. He is the one rider who has posed a significant threat to Mathieu van der Poel throughout his cyclocross career. He carries the legacy of winning world titles despite being outclassed by Van der Poel in this season. Races like BLS and Valkenburg are not forgotten quickly. I don't place Zolder into the same category as those 2 other world titles. That's what influences you, and the name Van Aert does so much, which also makes sense. It's also the reason we're spending so much time talking about it, when if we just look at their head-to-heads this season, even though the sample size is small, there really shouldn't be a debate. And if we look at Van der Poel storming to win in Hogerheide by 1 minute 40, then if it's any other rider, if it's, I don't know, Thibaut Nys announcing, I'm going to be starting after a season similar to Van Aert, would be like, okay, have fun. Nice fight for second. But it's the name Van Aert, so I get where you're coming from. We covered them enough. What do you think for third place? I probably think the weather conditions are going to influence your decision there. If it's muddy, we'll probably come to the big guns, the guns with the engines, Van Toerenhout, Wieseur, Aerts, Verstringen, Nieuwenhuis, maybe Ronhaar. But what do you think? Van der Haar looked quite good last week, and yeah, just in general, who do you think? Maybe a few names.
Yeah, Van der Haar was actually the first one I want to mention, because I think that that race in Hogerheide was for him, I think, quite good. If you look at the season, especially how he was going towards this World Championships. I mean, obviously he had a very good race in Benidorm, but it seems on the up, and I think that if Van der Haar has good legs, that could be quite interesting. Van Toerenhout obviously is going to be up there. It seems that he definitely wants to be entering Lievin with good legs and wants to do well. I think that he is eyeing that podium spot, as are several other riders. I mean, Nieuwenhuis for me is the one in which I am just very curious about what he is able to do. I mean, he didn't have the best of races in Hogerheide, but he was struggling in all forms. It wasn't really his best day. If he has a very good day in Lievin, who knows? I think then at that point, Nieuwenhuis is definitely someone that could be a force to be reckoned with. And some of this is going to depend on how the racing will go. Because if, let's just say, the Belgian riders will focus a lot on that battle up front and help to assist Van Aert in a way, whatever that means. I think then that could play a role. And the other way, it could also be playing a role that the Dutch, let's say Van der Haar, would sacrifice his race in a way to help Van der Poel in the early phase, or Ron Haar or someone else. That could maybe potentially play a role. And you always have that when two riders are away, which we are kind of expecting to happen, that basically two riders are up front and there is going to be a battle behind for third. That's sometimes a very weird race because riders are looking at each other and it could be someone that you don't really expect and didn't really have the best legs, but just made very good use of the situation and got away. So, it's a bit tricky, that third podium spot. And I think that, as you say, a lot is going to depend as well on the circumstances, especially for that third spot, because are we going to be looking into the bigger engines that we also somewhat saw in Hogerheide? Or is it going to be more of the faster guys, which also is going to count a little bit on the bigger engines? And there's a name that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's Thibaut Nys, and I think partially it has to do with his disaster of last weekend. But he is normally, if he has good legs, if he has the form of what he had at least 2 weeks ago, I think that he is also definitely someone we should not overlook, because I feel that he has shown so far this season that if everything is all right, he could be the best of the rest. So that is also someone that I think could definitely play a role for that third spot. But it is, in my eyes, not straightforward. It could go many ways.
It's the battle we've seen early in this season without Van Aert and Van der Poel in competition. It was really open, lots of contenders. Those riders are now most likely going to be fighting for a third place. I liked your earlier mention of Nieuwenhuis. I, however, think it's going to be between 4 riders. In my opinion, most likely Van der Haar will be up there. He was good last week. In recent years, he's been quite good at targeting the World Championships. He was really good in Veitville and Hogerheide. Last year in Tabor didn't click. He couldn't really replicate such exponential form growth towards the end of the season, which I would argue he has been doing this year. Besides that, Van Toerenhout has been in form in recent weeks. I like how he's looking. His performance in Hogerheide was solid. He was solid at the races in Benidorm and Maasmechelen. He too in recent years has really become a rider that excels at these championships. Third rider, Toon Aerts, how can we not mention him? He is the master of collecting bronze medals at championships. He has 3 bronze medals at the World Championships, 1 bronze medal at the European Championships, 2 bronze medals at the Belgian Championships, all in the elite categories. This is what he does. This is where he excels at. It would be very silly of me to count him out of contention. Final name is the one you also mentioned, Nys. He comes in with the question marks around the illness. Those question marks are for me a reason to not mention Laurens Sweeck. I don't like the way he's been looking since the Belgian Championships. Of course he can surprise. Again, I don't think he will. I might be wrong. Nys, he has shown more throughout the season, especially since the Christmas period, looking quite solid. Can't forget that win in Benidorm. I don't know how severe that illness has been. The reports have been very conflicting. He will start. He is apparently feeling quite good. So it could go either way. But if I had to choose a name, I would put Van Toerenhout in third this year, purely because he has really impressed me the past couple of years with how he looks at these championships. Last year, his season was saved by a third place in Tabor and that win in Pontchâteau. The rest of his season really wasn't that special. He was good at the Hogerheide Worlds. That's the year he also became European champion. For me, that's the ultimate factor to put him third. So my podium prediction is Van der Poel, Van Aert, Van Toerenhout.
Yeah, I like that. I think that is a very realistic one. I'm leaning towards the surprises more than a Van Toerenhout, because I feel that Van Toerenhout has definitely proven the last couple of races that if there is someone that could do it, it's definitely him. Something tells me that Nieuwenhuis could do it as well. So I will go for the surprise, knowing that it could definitely not be the case, but I feel that I will be very satisfied if that would happen. So I would say Nieuwenhuis for the third spot, and Van der Poel winning and Van Aert second. But I think overall we will definitely enjoy the race more with Van Aert in it than we would have done before, most likely on the men's side.
Well, you almost mentioned the women's side, which is where we're heading now. Can Fem van Empel realize the three-peat? After 2 dominant world titles, she has faced increased competition this year. The main rivals coming into this race are Lucinda Brandt, Puk Pieterse and Blanca Vasch. Marianne Vos is not starting. She is out with an injury. She injured her calf in Maasmechelen and withdrew from the race in Hogerheide, as she discussed with her staff. No crash there, luckily, but unfortunately no quest for a 9th world title of Vos. What do you think, Issam? The three-peat for Van Empel or no?
Oh man, if everything goes well for Van Empel, it's very well possible, and I feel that they definitely have tried everything this season to make sure that she's going to be at her best in the Worlds. It's tricky because we didn't get those indications that we would have loved to see from Van Empel last weekend, but that is last weekend, and we don't know how Van Empel can turn that around. It is very well possible. She trained hard, and that is something that sometimes comes out a little bit later than the weekend before World Championships. Most of the time it comes out in the weekend of the World Championships, and I think that if that is the case, we have seen it so far this season. We have had many indications that if Van Empel is at her best, is able to position herself quite well, there's not really someone that could beat her on her A game. But that's the question. Will she bring the A game? And that's, in my opinion, we have seen a bit too many times that it didn't really go her way and it was not her A game. That is going to be critical for that question of, her successfully winning the World Championships again and defending the title with success, getting that three-peat, or failing. And what are you going to make of her season in that point? It is a great season, but a lot of emphasis has been on that World Championships, and there are going to be a lot of people that are going to look at that season and failing to defend the World Championships and say, well, that was not really a successful season. That's a failed season. Is that fair? I don't think it is fair, but it is definitely going to be an opinion that is going to be shared if that would be the case.
I do think that Brandt can beat Van Empel on her A game, but let me weigh them, Issam. Let's put them in 1v1 scenarios. You tell me who you'd favor. Brandt versus Van Empel in the final lap.
Conditions?
Well, okay, let me then just instead paint a couple of scenarios, okay? Just how can I see this race play down? I find it very hard to imagine a scenario in which Puk Pieterse wins because this course doesn't suit her. What can she do? If she doesn't make mistakes, if she avoids the crashes she had past weekend, in the technicalities, the technical sections, that's where she can make some moves. There are, however, not many of them on this course, which makes it hard for me to think she can do it. She had this one phase in the season, it was very short-lived, in which those power sections gave her a slight advantage. I think towards Kokseide and Dendermonde. Those two races she looked quite good. But of course in Dendermonde she was beaten by Brandt. For Vasch, I also find it hard to see a scenario in which she wins. She lacks the power. She has been consistent, but also not technically on point. She was really good last week, and I think she'll finish on the podium. However, a win she will require, just like in Maasmechelen, her opponents to make a lot of mistakes. That is possible, but on pure merit, I think this race comes down to a battle Brandt-Van Empel. Van Empel, if the conditions are fast, I can see her take the win in a final lap battle. We've seen that this season. She and Brandt went head-to-head in Benidorm, fast course. Who had the win? Van Empel. Europeans, fast course. Who had the win? Presumed dead? Van Empel. But if the conditions are muddy, how does Brandt need to win? Sprints between them have been quite close. Probably Van Empel has a slight edge. How does Brandt win this? She needs to arrive solo, and for that to happen, she needs the course conditions to be a bit trickier. Trickier conditions will help her. Van Empel has been prone to the mistakes in those conditions, especially under pressure. That's kind of how I see it coming into this weekend.
I can definitely see what you're portraying. I mean, it's with Brandt, we have seen that her fighting spirit is unmatched, and we have seen it as well in the sprint. She's someone that doesn't really give up, no matter the circumstances, no matter the competitor. Even if it's a Van Empel that you probably know already, you will lose the sprint. So it is going to be super interesting, and I think a lot will depend on Van Empel and how she will go throughout the race. I mean, the mistakes on these courses are, I think, a little bit more difficult to make than on other type of courses, but we have seen her struggle, and that is going to be interesting. I mean, for Pieterse and also Vash, I think for them it's going to be a case of seizing an opportunity somewhere in the race, maybe just after the opening when maybe it's a bit packed and some riders are looking at each other, and there is an opportunity for them for sure. And we have seen with Pieterse this season that if she gets an opportunity, she will try to take it and seize the moment and will not look back. Will that be enough? Who knows? And will Van Empel let that happen? We don't know. And the same goes for Brandt. I think that Brandt is definitely going to be the most consistent factor that we will see in this race, and that's the one that we can expect to be there. No questions. She will always be there. She's going to be the easiest to say that will make the podium if nothing goes wrong for her, obviously. But I don't see a race in which Brandt is not going to finish on the podium. However, I struggle to see a scenario in which she really can put Van Empel under pressure if it isn't for Van Empel being at her best. The way I look at this race is it's going to be most likely a lot that will depend on Van Empel. Will she be able to overcome all the issues and have just a very good race? Faultless, I think it's going to be a bit difficult for Brandt to beat her, even if the circumstances are a little bit tougher, because we have seen that Van Empel can get through that as well. If that is not the case, then it could be interesting. And then, it depends also if Brandt is going to be faultless or also make mistakes. And it could be a very weird race, but the course just doesn't really give me that scenario. And because of that, I think that's, a lot's going to depend on Van Empel. And I think that Van Empel in the end should normally, if everything goes well, defend it and be the first crossing the line in my eyes.
Let me bring into recollection Brandt's history at the World Championships. BLS, after her first season really taking cross serious, she crashed on that massive off-camber downhill at the end of the course, finished 4th. 2 years later, she is in contention for the world title again in Bogense, the faulty bike chain. She still clipped into her pedal, but her dad already grabbed her bike, crash, gone world title. Then 2 years later, she's in real contention again. We are in Oostende, on the beach, and Killer Brandt comes right out. Cold hand finish on Annemarie Worst. At the end of the course, Worst tries to seize an opportunity to overtake. Brandt shoves the door, Worst crashes. Brandt world champion. The next season, the Worlds were in Fayetteville. Brandt needed to face Vos, a rider perhaps somewhat similar to Van Empel. Best on fast courses, you don't want to sprint against it. Brandt rode very stupid, according to Sven Nys. Sven Nys was even swearing so heavily on the Belgian TV he needed to issue a public apology for the words he said after the race. How will Brandt come into this race? Do you think we'll see the stone cold killer we saw in Oostende? Or will we see more the rider we saw in Fayetteville? Because if I think back to this season, those 2 fast races in Pontevedra and Benidorm, 2 times in the final lap, I didn't see that killer Brandt that defends every single centimeter of the course.
That's interesting. At times this season, at least the last couple of races from what I can recollect, is, definitely saw some moments in which Brandt is feisty and is able to position herself well and defend the inside at times. And I can remember in Maasmechelen that overtake around the outside. I mean, there are not a lot of people that are able to pull that off. I think that we will see a Brandt that if she gets the opportunity will try everything and will throw everything at it to make that possible. But I think it's in her nature in a way to sometimes just make decisions which you later look at and I think she would do too and regret it in a way.
Normally for the world title, when everything is on the line, we'll see that. And how cool would it be to see a rider whose year of birth starts with 19 and then an 8 win? I think she's the oldest rider. No, she's not the oldest rider on the start list. Caroline Mani is racing. She's one of the oldest rider. My point still stands. It would be quite cool. I think apart from the riders we just mentioned, there aren't that many other riders that I see fight for a podium. Outsiders are Alvarado and Casasola. Both, however, for their own reasons, haven't been in great form lately. So unless you have any other names to put forward, feel free to make your prediction here, Issam.
I think I go straight to the predictions. I think that Van Empel will defend it and be able to take home the rainbow, or take home. She's probably just going to wear again the same jersey. So Van Empel wins it. Second, I would say Brandt, and then third for Peterson.
I will go with Brandt then, ahead of Van Empel and Vash. It hurts me to not put Petersen on the podium, but I have to do what has to be done in this case. It would be great to see that Hungarian flag up there. I've doubled down too much on that. Let's move to another race then. Issam, also involving women. Several of these women wouldn't have been a bad addition to the elite start list. I mentioned it earlier. This is one of the categories where there is a clear favorite. Zoe Backstedt is that rider. Earlier this season, Marie Schreiber could pose a threat to her, but after that victory in Hulst, Backstedt has beaten Schreiber in 6 out of the 7 races. Only in Benidorm did Schreiber top Backstedt. What I mentioned about bad days, mechanicals, all that still stands. And also about the course conditions. Schreiber is probably hoping for a very fast course because she performs best on them. She should be able to pose a threat if the course is really fast, but then she will need to race much better than she did at the European Championship. She cannot have another tactical outing like that.
I tend to agree with that. I think that Backstedt has shown this season that she improved technically, but still is not the greatest in it. But normally the difference that she can make on Backstedt, on Schreiber, is just, we have seen it, it's significant. If it's going to be faster, I think that Schreiber can definitely hang on longer. I don't think that, Schreiber is the Schreiber that would normally be put under pressure by Backstedt on a faster course. She has to be smart. Her mindset has to be, Backstedt is the main favorite, and I only have to make sure that I beat Backstedt in the last lap, and I have to cross the line first. And don't think about anything else. If you have good legs or not, doesn't matter. Just sit in the wheel. Just make sure that you play a mental game. And I think that if she does that, you never know what could happen. But if logic would be respected in a way, I definitely feel that, Backstedt is probably once again going to be crowned world champion.
My biggest question coming in here is, can Schreiber piece it together at a championship? Because the past 2 years, in the preview, we said the same thing. 2 years ago, we even interviewed her in the week before the championships. 2 years in a row, we said, Schreiber, she is the main contender for Zoe Backstedt. But 2 years in a row, she finished 5th at the World Championships. Not necessarily because of mechanicals and punctures, but mainly just because of pressure, bad days. Earlier this year in Pontevedra, we saw the same thing. Pressure got to her, she couldn't drop Cherie right away as she'd hoped. She continued pacing and obviously got outsprinted in the final lap. That was a disaster class. I still cannot fathom a race where I've seen worse tactics in recent history. It was really bad. Yes, she has 2 silver medals at the European Championships. The one in Pontchâteau was a solid outing. But apart from that, championships have not really been a good match with Schreiber. That's a tough reality. So I'm questioning, can she put it together? Because if not, there's a whole list of riders that is ready to fight and take her position, to give her hell. Where earlier this season that was mainly Bentveld, that list has grown. Cherie has put her name in that conversation. We've seen that Isabella Holmgren has been beating Bentveld in recent weeks. She did quite well this weekend with a 12th and a 10th. Eva Holmgren comes in as a question mark. She's been a bit ill, but she was really good in the Christmas period. That race in Zonhoven was super solid. And then the list goes on. On a good day, non-technical course, Kat Ferguson, perhaps Imogen Wolves get it together. Gladonova was really good in Benidorm. What about Vida Lopez de San Roman? What about Amandine Muller? That's a long list of riders that can really gun for that second spot if Schreiber can't leave those troubles at the World Championships behind with those light blue Luxembourg outfits. She'll be racing in red this weekend.
And that is, I mean, I saw that and I was I didn't know how to react on that because I think that was a bit of a disgrace, I would say. It doesn't even make sense, to be honest. It's not even. Anyways, I shouldn't be really go too long on that. But I agree with you. I think that it is, if Schreiber is not going to be able to claim at least second, there are a lot of women that are able and capable of being able to take that spot. And I think with Jerry, you definitely, in my eyes, probably the one that if her form is good, because Hogerheide was terrible. But if she is able to, if it is just that week before the World Championships, very tired and just hoping for the race to be over, I think Jerry is definitely going to be a very dangerous rider for a podium spot. And I think the Holmgren sisters are also going to be, as you said, Eva is going to be a bit of a question mark. Isabella, we have seen her do quite well. So that is interesting. And I think one thing that we have to take into consideration is that don't get too much fooled with results that we see in the women elite, because the racing here is going to be just that tiny bit different, because the pace should normally be just a little slower. It's going to be more tactical, and certain riders that normally don't really have time to be tactical about the race, because it's, on the women's side, especially for some of these women, it's at least a lot of chasing and a lot of just not even giving the legs some rest, just constantly going on with the pace. I think now, obviously, it could be a bit of a different scenario. Could be some moments in which the pace will drop a little. It could be a bit more tactical, and that could increase indeed that list that you kind of mentioned now, in terms of women that are capable of getting themselves on the podium spot, if not the second spot. But we are going into this race with definitely a big favorite, someone that is capable of beating in the likes of Schreiber. And behind that, it's going to be quite interesting. Who is able to fill that third spot, if not the second spot, and what could go wrong for any of the competitors to change it up a little? And I think this is going to be a good watch.
It should certainly be a good watch, a bit further behind the leaders. The racing will be different. However, Issam, slower, Don't think it's going to be slower. Unless Mary Schreiber has a change of heart, the first lap will be faster than the first lap in the women's elite race. In Pontevedra, the women U23 rode faster in almost every single lap of the race. Schreiber put in, I think, the fastest lap of any woman over the weekend, and her second fastest lap time was also faster than any other lap time. Backset also has the pace. It might not be slower, but the tactics will definitely be different for third rather than normally where they are like around 10th. I don't think Bentveld is going to finish on the podium here. My reasoning for it is that she does best in muddy conditions, but if it's muddy, she's going to be beaten by Isabella Holmgren, who's shown better form in recent weeks. Holmgren was 4th last year. Her biggest vulnerability is the start. Can she avoid such major time loss in the first lap? She should be able to beat Bentveld. If the conditions are fast, they don't suit Bentveld, they suit Géry more, which means I would probably pick Géry. And there's plenty of other riders. Bentveld just hasn't looked great enough in recent weeks. This whole season has been not bad, but just a bit dull. It's been a burger without any taste, without seasoning. It's okay, but it's not more than a 5. So I don't really see her on the podium. My prediction, well, actually, I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, I think Buckstead will take it. It will be a good battle with Schreiber in second, and third, I think that Géry could be able to take that third spot. That's going to be, I think, for her also quite special to be able to pull that off. So I think she will be heavily motivated, and if that training that she has done before the weekend, before the World Championships, then that really was a good training, then that could definitely pay off in this weekend. So I would say Géry in third.
I'll follow you in predicting Backset for the win, but then I'll predict that there will be the World Championship struggles, the stress which is undescribable. It's like nothing else. We'll get to Schreiber once again. Second place in that case will go to Bella Holmgren. And for third place, I'm going to pick Gladanova. I liked what I saw in Benidorm. This weekend, she's been solid. She's been a bit under the radar. I like her. I like that pick. I said it last year. From the first years, I thought she and Lopez de San Roman had most progression margin. Géry has also progressed nicely. It's certainly not a bad pick for her, but just to be a bit different, I'm going to take Gladanova. Can't have the French winning too many medals. But then in the next category, I can already spoil you a little bit. I am predicting a French rider on the podium, but the big favorite for the men's U23 title is who else than Tibor Del Grosso. He made sure that the media would pay close attention. He wrote this tweet saying, or X or post, whatever you want to call it, is this the elite category calling, joking about his shoe celebration. Of course, he's racing the U23 category. That was quite predictable. The entry deadline had already been. He's the big favorite to win his title. And here we can even say, well, if he crashes or one puncture, he can survive that. He's been so good this season, comfortably outclassed the rest. I would almost say, why waste our time? Who's going to finish second?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it has been a very good season for Del Grosso, and I think that if you look at this weekend's World Championships, probably the one in which you are most certain of that he will be world champion. So I think there's not much that could go wrong for him. It has to go terribly wrong for him to lose out on that title. And it would be great if after that title he jumps and makes that jump to the elite and can even progress more. I think that would be a great watch. But yeah, for the title, I don't think there is going to be much resistance from the other competitors. And as you say, we look then to a second place, and I think I said it already in Hogerheide, where we normally would say Jente Michels. I think that decline has to be studied in a way, because it hasn't gone his way, and it is, arguably it's not only the legs, it's just the mistakes that he's making. It's not on point, and because of that, opportunities are coming up, and especially for the French riders. Sparvel, we have seen him in Hogerheide, but we have seen him so far this season, has had some good results, some great results actually, and I think he is definitely from the French delegation going to be the one which we should consider the most for a podium. With Bisio, I didn't like how he was looking there in Hogerheide. I honestly also don't think that it will be in time for him to get better. It just really didn't look good, and I don't know if he can recover from that. And then I think the one in which I hope he will do well, Stefano Viezzi. I think that for him it's going to be a difficult race, and he has to just make sure that he doesn't take as many turns as he was doing and be more tactical and choose his moments a little bit better. But I think for him that's just going to be very difficult. And I have to say the Belgium riders, they have a few. They have some strong riders there as well. Some riders that are coming up a little bit. Corsius, obviously, that could be interesting as well. How the Belgium riders will be riding there, because if they would use their riders a little bit more tactically, and they have, in my opinion, they would normally have the numbers if Del Grosso is gone. That could be interesting as well. If they could make some work, we have seen both Sparvel and Viezzi be very eager to chase and to take the lead and take initiative. If the Belgian riders could make use of that, that could be the downfall for both those guys in terms of losing out on the podium spot.
The Belgians are with many, but we saw how their team tactics worked out in Hogerheide. They didn't. They tried some. Michels, Dogs playing the game with Corsius attacking. The others got it in control. I'm just not sure if I agree with your idea that Michels has really fallen off a cliff. I get where you're coming from. You saw him in Hogerheide, it didn't look good. You saw him on the broadcast of the Belgian Championships, he looked horrible. In between those races, he raced in Benidorm, where I saw him, and he looked quite good. He looked quite punchy up the climb, he looked comfortably better than the others. Together with Sparvel, he was the only one able to stick with Del Grosso when the world champion launched his first attack. Therefore, I think Hogerheide is mere a bad day. It's just the effects of the training ahead of the World Championships. Look at his earlier results. Sure, he had that real off day in Besançon. He's become more inconsistent throughout the season. But those 6 places in Baal and that 9th place in Diegem, they still count for something. He has perhaps not been as good as we had hoped for or as good as his own expectations. He's still been okay. I think he's going to finish second. I like your picks for Vietzi and Sparfell. I do think those are the main contenders for the third spot. I'm probably going to give Sparfell a bit of the edge. He beat Vietzi 2 times in a row here in the last 2 races. He has finished on the podium of the last 3 World Cups. Vietzi has been okay. I just think that Sparfell has a few more tools in his toolbox. Courses, I've been quite high on him. This course is just not for him. It's too straightforward. He is very good technically. Hulst next year is going to be a great course for him. This year, probably 1 year too early. My prediction, Del Grosso, Michels, Sparfell.
All right. Well, I will go a bit different. I will definitely go with Del Grosso winning, but I would say Sparfell in second and Corsius in third. I think I agree with you that this is too straightforward for a Corsius, but I don't know. I think that the race is going to be on the Saturday. That could play a role, maybe. I think that the circumstances could lean more towards a tougher race. We'll see how that will play out, but I'll go with Corsius in third.
I do still want to mention one name I didn't mention. I will regret if I don't. Aaron Dox, the Belgian champion. He went out of competition after Besançon. His endurance base was completely ruined. His coach admitted that they made a mistake rushing him towards the European Championships. They didn't take enough rest after the road season, took him out of competition to rebuild. He was good at the Belgian Championships. They returned to rebuilding immediately after. He looked solid in Hogerheide. If those training effects pay off, he could be another dangerous rider in contention for the podium. Let's go to the junior woman then. I'm postponing the men junior so I have extra time to think about who I want to pick there, because that's going to be insane. My head has been burning all week over it, and honestly the junior woman, despite having fewer contenders, is still a relatively open race. If you ask me, Issam, there are 3 riders that have a slight edge above the rest. We have French champion Lise Revol, a first year. She won the World Cups in Benidorm and Besançon. Then we have Barbora Bukowska, the Czech first year. She won in Hogerheide after numerous podium spots. And then we have the Canadian overall winner of the World Cup, Raphaël Carrier. She won twice in Hulst and in Zonhoven, finished on the podium a bunch of other times, and is the overall winner as said. Are these 3 your favorites, or am I overlooking someone who you think is going to become world champion?
No, I think those 3 are definitely in my eyes also the clear favorites, and also the ones that somewhat deserve to be called that. Because as you said, I think Revol definitely did not have the greatest of days in Hogerheide, but has shown so far this season that if she has her day, it's difficult to beat her. Bukowska finally got that somewhat of I don't know if you can call it a breakthrough win, but definitely if you look at her season, could be called that. It was somewhat of a win we were anticipating, but wasn't really coming, and I think that will be interesting. The flow, the momentum in a way that could do wonders in a way. We have seen it in the past as well. There's certain riders, they're able just to snatch that win a week or 2 before the Worlds, and that just changes their whole idea of that race, and it maybe gets them to another level and pushes them completely. That could make the difference in a way, and it's in a way, I have to say, it's open, and it will depend on several factors. And of course, Carrier, before we entered this season, in my eyes, the main favorite. But I don't know what you think about that, but can we say that it was maybe a little disappointing, or did we overlook the fact that maybe a Bukowska or a Revol could be some of the riders that move up and make it very difficult for Carrier? Or maybe you have another take on it.
Let's look at it this way. Let's look at the second year juniors, Issam. From the second year juniors, Carrier is the only one we've mentioned. We'll come to Kabaka, who is probably the main outsider in a bit. But Kabaka and Carrier were the 2 riders we mentioned coming in from the second years, together with Gottwaldova. I would say Gottwaldova has had a disappointing season. She's had a couple of nasty illnesses affecting her. But Carrier has delivered. She won the overall World Cup. Yes, she didn't sweep it. She won 2 out of 6 rounds, took the overall win. She's been on the podium of all but one of the World Cups. Is that really disappointing? No. I don't think that based on her performance in Hoogheide we should conclude that she's the third one in this horse race either. Her ride in Benidorm would have been good for the victory had she had a better start. And then we come to the vulnerabilities of these riders. Carrier and Bukowska are bad starters. That's their main problem. This season, the French riders were Revol, Lambert, or Desprez. They all had great starts. Duterte was normally also up there. In Besançon, they were 1, 2, 3, 4 for a very brief moment in the race. That's what Revol needs to take advantage of. She needs to put them under pressure early, and then she can rely on some technical skills. That's not that relevant on this course. Carrier carries some more experience. She's raced a world championship before. She knows what it is. Last year the race didn't at all go to plan. She struggled with the pressure, had a total off day. That can easily happen to one of these other favorites. That's an advantage she has. I didn't mention Kabaka in my list, but the more I think about it, the more I'm also inclined to put her on par with these 3 riders. She's had that tough start to the season, the fallout with Deschamps, the public feud that escalated after, the bad press on the Belgian TV, all for a rider who's 17, 18 years old, not easy to deal with. And in recent weeks, she's turned it around. After those disappointing nationals, she flicked it around. 3rd in Benidorm, 2nd in Hoogheide. Last year, she peaked for the World Championships, delivered on the day. If she learns to shoulder her bike if it's muddy, like really muddy. We also saw that same struggle a little bit in Hogerheide. If she's able to do that, she could really pose a threat to these riders. The more I think about it, the more this idea of her being up there is growing on me. Her starts are good, and that's what I'm really, really worried about Bukowska. I've seen her finish the first lap as 23rd a bunch of times this season. She recovers to podium spots. Nice. If you want to become a world title, your start needs to be better. I don't count on a repeat of last week where, yes, she was extremely strong in Hoogheide. Yes, she recovered from a start crash and another crash at the end of the first lap. But repeating that 2 weeks in a row, that's probably a bit much of an ask. And the same is for Carrier. If she can limit her damages at the start to the similar scenarios as in Hulst and in Zonhoven, where she's like 10, 12th going into the field, no problem at all. Is she like 18th, as in Benidorm? Much bigger problems.
Yeah, I definitely think that could play a significant role. And as you said, I think Bukowska in Hogerheide, that is something that I don't foresee either on the World Championships. She has to be on it. If she wants to make a real chance of winning the world title, it has to be with a very good first lap. Because if you mess it up there, I don't think they will give her the chance to get back into it, because a lot of these riders will be on their end game. They will be up there. They will be making sure that they will not take it easier or drop the pace, and they will all make it a little bit more difficult. But again, I cannot overlook what I saw in Hogerheide. I cannot forget the stories about the fast laps. It's just a risk.
It's a tough thing, and especially in these junior categories, the pressure plays a larger role. How can you deal with it? How can you recover from such mistakes? Can you overcome the adversity during the race? It's easier said than done. Besides these 4 riders I mentioned, there's a large group of outsiders for a podium spot. We have Lydia Cusack, who won the first round in Dublin. There's Lisanne Desprez. She finished on the podium of all World Cups she did. The first 4 didn't finish in Benidorm due to a rolled tubular, didn't start in Hogerheide due to a illness. That could affect her. She's probably, from the riders I mentioned, the one with the most realistic shot at snapping a podium spot from the riders we discussed. Other riders involved. Duterte hasn't been on the podium this season. Oh, she was second in Besançon now I think about it. Pelizzotti, 3rd place at the European Championships. and the European champion herself, of course, Anja Grossman. I do think that all these riders just lack slight power. It's a championship. If things come in, like, fall in their place, if all the chips land where they hope them to land, it could be a lucky day for them. The tough part here is making the predictions. I sense that you're going to go with Bukowska, and I wasn't planning on doing so anyway. I think we're going to see a first year take the title, but that is going to be Lise Revol in front of our home crowd. I liked what I saw in the final part of the season. Kabaka is going to take second, with Carrier beating Bukowska for fourth. I'm quite torn between these riders. It's really close. I expect a great race. This is my... I made it a top 4. You can keep it to 3, Issam.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on going for a top 4, but I like to take risks, and I think, I really hope that she could be able to pull that off, because that's just something that you would, that could elevate positioning in conversations for certain teams or support. So I also wish it for her that she's able to pull it off. I'm gonna say Bukowska winning it, although I have to say that my common sense is saying that Revol is probably the one that could take it. I gave her the biggest chance, but I'm going to stick with Bukowska. Bukowska will take it. Revol in second, and I will say Kabaka in third.
Definitely not a crazy prediction, and you're right, it would be great to see Bukowska on the top step of the podium. A Czech world champion would be quite cool. Another race where we could see a lot of different nationalities, atypical nationalities on the podium, is the men junior. This is the hardest race to predict. The season has been completely crazy. It's been utterly insane. There have been 12 podium finishers in Junior World Cups across 6 different races. It's so hard to draw any conclusions. We've had multiple different winners of the World Cups, including in the final round Benedikt Benz, a German who's very powerful on the road, who hadn't finished in the top 10 of a single World Cup before this season. It can really go any way. We could be in for a surprise. However, if I had to point you towards 2 main favorites, it would be the 2 riders who won 2 World Cups this season. Italian European champion Mattia Agostinaccio had a few off days, but for most part of the season has been consistently up there. And then first year French junior, he is the winner of the World Cup, Søren Bruyère-Joumard. Those 2 would be my favorites here. Issam, I would have on a different course said Gilles Lejeune, Belgian first year. This course requires too much power. That's not something for him. He's more a technical rider. He's a bit smaller than the 2 other guys. Next year, Hulst, maybe some better opportunities for him. Again, Joumard and Agostinaccio, my 2 favorites, but nothing makes sense in this category. Maybe we need to instead look at the riders just outside of the top 10 to conclude our favorites. Michiel Maurits, strong rider. Maybe he recovers from his illness and takes the world title. Maybe Benedikt Benz follows up on Hogerheide. You get where I'm going. It makes no sense at all.
If there is a category which could deliver with a surprise world champion, I think this is the one. This is really... it has been very hard to draw any conclusions from any of the races this season. One race you think that Agostinaccio is it, and then the next race you think that Bruyère is going to smoke them all, and then the next race, and it never stopped really. And it's not only for the top positions, no, it's actually for the entirety of the top 10. And even below that, it's just crazy in a way. And I think that makes it just very hard to make any sense of it. I think that the names you mentioned definitely are the ones that we should be looking towards. I'm interested to see what Bazant can do. Has been having a very tough season, struggling, and it's going to be tricky. But who knows? Maybe he can with his experience in a way of second years junior, that could maybe play a role that could help him a little bit, and that will be interesting. But one thing that I will not forget on Joumard is I watched that French championship, and he's very fast. He has the power, but he can make mistakes, silly mistakes at times. And it's not really under pressure, but it's just sometimes that he is a bit eager. If he also is going to be a bit eager at a World Championships, which could not be a crazy thought, that could lose him the race in a way. And that it's going to be interesting. It's, these junior races, your race could be over in the first corner, maybe even at the start. So if there is one prediction round that I'm not looking forward for, it's this one. I don't know if you want to still go over one of the riders, because there are quite a few, to be honest.
I can tell you one thing. If people are over an hour deep into a Worlds preview listening to the junior men's category, they certainly won't judge you for the nerd level of watching the French junior men national championships just to have a sense of how talented those riders are. I haven't seen Jumar make many of those mistakes this season. What really sticks with me was his win in Besançon, where he came from a slower start, moved through the field, opened the lead, had a mechanical, ran 300 meters to the pit, closed 15 seconds, easily dropped everyone and took the win. For me, he's the favorite. Yes, he can make mistakes. Yes, it's like, it makes no sense. I'm just going to name some other riders. We don't have time, energy, or even the will to go over them, but here are some other riders to keep in mind. Powerful riders without skills. Mats van den Einde, Benjamin Noval Suarez, and Valentin Hofer. They are all up there. You mentioned Bazant. I have my doubts that he can turn it around following all those illnesses this season. Nevertheless, Dangerous Rider looked okay in Hogerheide. In the same category as Bazant is Vassal. He finished well at last year's World Championships, was hyped from the second years, has been up there but hasn't scored a World Cup podium. Arthur van der Boer is kind of the Belgian version of Vassal. He's been very inconsistent this season, also last season in the World Cups. He is powerful, but also a question mark. He didn't finish in Hogerheide, reason unknown. I'm not going to be surprised if he finishes on the podium, but I'm not confident enough to predict him there. Other riders, Patrick Pezzo-Rossola finished on the podium in Hogerheide. He looked quite decent in Benidorm as well, one of the Italians who's only come into form late this season. Filippo Grigolini, another Italian that's powerful. The French and the Italians really have a number of riders that can contend for a high finishing place. And then, of course, Ben's another powerful rider coming off that win, hard to completely ignore. The Dutch have, as mentioned, Maurits, then they have Timmermans. Course is probably a bit too easy for Timmermans. He does better when there is a bit more technicality hidden into the course. The Brits have Milo Wills and Oscar Amy, two riders that also have a shot. Amy has finished on the podium in Besançon. But if you were to ask me, actually it's your turn to predict first, Issam, but yeah, I already said it. I was leaning towards Jumar for the victory here, but I'll let you take the top three first.
Very convenient. No, oh God, I will go with Agostinacho. I think that he can turn it around. He can be up there. It's just this season so far he has had a lot of ups, some downs as well. Quite some races under his belt. I think that he normally should be in good form and should turn it around, but we will see. I think Agostinacho will take it. I go with Bruyère in second, and I liked what I saw from Van den Einde last weekend. I will put Van den Einde in third for Belgium, taking a medal.
As said, I will go with Søren Bruyère-Jumar taking the win ahead of Mattia Agostinacho, hoping to find some consistency inside all of this chaos. For third place, it's so hard. It's so hard. I don't know why Noval Suarez didn't race in Hogerheide. Was this planned? Was it not planned? His race in Zonhoven was really good. He should have won there in all honesty, but made a mistake in the final lap. I should just pull the trigger here. I'm going to go for a third place, in this case for Valentin Hofer. I think he'll just about get it done. This should be the best watch of the weekend. Sunday, 11 a.m. Central European Time. Be there, watch it. it's going to be great. That leaves us with one race, Issam, the mixed relay. Friday's race, unfortunately not broadcasted. France is not fielding its strongest team to defend its title. They are racing with Zélie Lambert, Célia Géry, Hélène Clauzel, Florian Ferry, Jules Simon and Joshua Dubois. I still think they have a good shot at defending their title. The main challenge is expected, at least by me, to come from Italy with Giorgia Pellizzotti, Lucia Bramati, Casasola, Agostinaccio, Stefano Fiezzi and Gioele Bertolini. Other dangerous outsiders include, or contenders I should say, Great Britain, Belgium, Canada and United States. What's your brief thought on this race?
Yeah, that it's first and foremost. I think I want to mention that it's a bloody shame that the Netherlands is not participating. I think it's a disgrace, to be honest. Yet again, not taking part, and I don't know. I don't understand why they would not take part. It's a bit silly at this point. It looks bad, but anyways, yeah. I think if you look at the teams, I think in my eyes, Italy and France are the strongest. I would lean personally more towards France because I feel that they probably have the upper hand with the women under 23 and that could be interesting. Normally we have seen that could in terms of differences could definitely be the one in which the differences are the biggest. Obviously, as you said, you have the other four with Great Britain, with Belgium, with Canada, and the United States. It's a shame that Czech Republic doesn't really have a very strong team. They just lack a little bit. For Great Britain, it feels like a downgrade compared to last year, and it probably is in a way as well. I don't see them capitalize on what they normally are good at, which is the order and the way they try to manage the race. They're normally quite good at that, but I feel that will not be enough for them to bring up the challenge. And with Belgium, it always has been and it always probably will up until a point they actually have they finally got through that development on the women's side. Just the women's side is a bit poor. On one lap it could be enough, but I don't think it really is. It's just that could really hurt them in a way, because I think on the men's side they actually have a very, very, very decent team. Arguably, to be honest, if I look at it, one of the stronger teams on that side. But it's just on the women's side, it's just they come a little bit short. And Canada, in my eyes, bit of the underdogs. Not really, it feels that they try their best, but on the men's side, it's a bit poor. That will be interesting to see if that will really hurt them that much. And the last team that I want to cover is the United States, which I think is going to be also one of those underdogs. They have a team in which everything goes well, top 5 and potentially a podium is possible. But I don't know if everything will go well. And we have seen it so far in these editions of the mixed relay that it's so difficult to get everything right in terms of strategy, no mistakes, a good first lap. So it's very tricky to predict or at least think that the United States could be able to pull off a podium spot. But they will definitely be a country to take into consideration for a top 5.
What you're hinting at is that almost every team has a weak link somewhere. For Belgium, it's their woman, especially woman junior, the most important category. The slower they are, the more important they are. So the order of importance is woman junior, woman U23, woman elite. Then the same order of categories on the men's side. Problems for Great Britain, why it's a downgrade, is that they don't have men U23. They have 2 men junior racing. They have a not so strong woman junior rider. That's where their problems come from compared to last year. Italy, as you mentioned, woman U23 is an issue. Canada has issues with men junior and men elite. Very strong women's side there. USA and France don't really have many weak links. They have consistent riders everywhere, but they don't really have those wow star riders in any category. France does kind of with Géry, which is why I favor them over the US. But if you just look at it, they're all solid. Cusack can get a lead over somebody like Lambert. But then if you look at the rest of the team, it's iffy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be interesting, and small details will decide. Limiting mistake, course conditions, and strategy will be decisive, which brings it in here to a nice, entertaining battle. My feeling says Italy, and then I'll take them over France and Belgium for a podium to wrap up the episode. So
Yeah, I then probably go with France, Italy. I'm going to be optimistic here. I will say the United States in third.
okay, good. Issam, we've covered all the races. Thank you so much. We're ready to leave to France tomorrow.
Probably. I hope I can be there because holy moly, I have not be feeling well. Hopefully it wasn't that visible in the episode. We got through it, so it was a pleasure being here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the Worlds because there's always that big moment that we have this season. So can't wait.
You always see it. You get sick at the worst times. I remember I've been in the Christmas period a few times. Hopefully everything pans out well. Leave a comment if you made it all the way here with some predictions or just some thoughts ahead of the World Championships. Enjoy the watching. We'll cover all the racing this weekend on the podcast and our Instagram. See you guys soon. Goodbye.